Africa, I think it's a hub of opportunity, and also it's the future, if I can call it that way, because of I would say three main reasons. Africa is the world's youngest continent, with around 60% of the population that are currently under the age of 25. So that itself is this represents a huge opportunity for the continent to position itself in the global production and the consumption chain. And youth is one of the biggest, I would say, resources Africa has, because their eagerness, dynamism, let's call it that way, or creativity, energy, and the ability to make the best use of innovation, for example, and they can drive the political, economic, and the cultural transformation of the continent. So that's one of the number one. And the other one, imagine having around 60% of the world's farmable land being in Africa. So this is if there is it is estimated that, for example, if all the arable land in Africa were to be nurtured with the right information, knowledge, and the farmers to be the technology transfer to farmers with the credible research institutions and the technical expertise to be shared to them, Africa will be able to feed over 60% of the world's population by 2050 alone.
Hello, and welcome to Say Hi to the Future, a podcast aimed at highlighting the human side of human ingenuity, clever, inventive, and original thinking. My name is Ken Tenser, curator of Say Hi to the Future and CEO of Spiderworks, a leading business consultancy for mid-market organizations and entrepreneurs globally. With me today is Cedric Habiyaremye, a crop scientist and agricultural entrepreneur developing solutions for a zero hunger and malnutrition-free world. He is a scientist who brought quinoa to Rwanda and other parts of Africa. As a scientist, Cedric serves as a research associate at Washington State University and a research lead at Food Systems for the Future Institute. As an entrepreneur, Cedric is the founder and CEO of Quinoa Hub, co-founder of Farmwella, and co-founder of Pagric. He has more than 10 years of experience in international agricultural development with focus on the links between agriculture, food systems, and nutrition. Like this video if you enjoy our show and subscribe to our channel. Leave us a comment with who you would like to see us interview next. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Good evening, Cedric. Welcome to Say Hi to the Future.
Hi, Ken. It's so nice to meet you, and thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And I was reading your background, and it's absolutely inspirational. I mean, when you talk about it, you grew up, from my understanding, mostly in Rwanda. There was a lot of times of hunger, of being in refugee camps. And here today, I'm talking to you. You're in Washington. You have your doctorate. You're a world-renowned crop scientist. How does that happen?
So it's quite a long journey, but maybe I will try to break it down and so I can lay the story. So I think it all goes way back when I was a young boy, 7 years old, because that's when my country, Rwanda, went through the tragedy of the genocide that took so many lives and caused my family and I and some other people I know to flee the country, and they became refugees. And life in a refugee camp, it was not life. We struggled with hunger, malnutrition, and starvation to the point, like, seeing a lot of people dying from all those diseases, and also dying from hunger. And when we returned back to Rwanda after 3 years in a refugee camp, and that time I was 11, but in a combination of all that, I started kind of living in a place of despair or hopelessness. I started seeing like as if I don't have a place in this world, because we would live the present moment, like today, but you don't know if you're surviving tomorrow. No food, we could go 2 or 3 days with nothing to eat, only drinking water from the swamps, to the point where like start losing a sense of life, or what the purpose or what the meaning, because it was a lot of suffering. So to that point, my mother, she saw the despair in her eyes. I'm the youngest of the family. I have my older brother. So she called us in the room and said, I see seems like you are desperate and don't have hope, but I see this is not the end of your lives. I see a lot of potential in you. So my dad was, I lost him, he died, was killed a long time, during all those process. Anyway, when she said that, imagine telling somebody, I see the potential in you at the future of this country. You can do big things. You can save people's lives. I'm like, we can't save ourselves, Those were, I could call it harsh, strong words for a hungry, desperate child to digest. So I left the room crying, and she put me back. She said, it seems like what I'm saying doesn't make sense to you now, but the only way to become who you want to become is to go to school and study. I was so devastated. She's talking about school and the future again. So left the room. There was like a tree in the backyard. I sat there and cried a lot. My brother stayed there. She was talking to him, and he came and joined me. We cried together. And later on, he said, maybe she's right. Let's wait and see. I was like, so now you are taking her side now? Because I start thinking they are teaming up against me. Because at least I need somebody who can understand what I'm going through and who can take my side. And then with an angry voice, I asked him, so if you think she's right, what do you want to do if we survive this? So because my dad was a pharmacist and businessman, and my brother was like, you see, people are dying around here from different disease. Maybe I will become a pharmacist to be able to give them medicine. And then he was like, what about you? I was like, we are hungry, we don't have food. Maybe I go to school and study and learn more about agriculture. And so we won't go to bed hungry anymore. So we did the pinky promise that we're going to stick to our dreams no matter what. But so I was 11 that time and he was 12. And then school was quite expensive because we come from a place of having everything to losing everything. So then school was pretty much, if we convert to days, was like around 25 cents a semester, but we could not afford it at all. So I came up with an idea. I was like, okay, I'm not going to be a burden to my mother or to anybody else. I'm going to find a solution to my problems. And I wanted to see if she was right. But to prove if she's wrong, I would have done my best, So I went knocking on the people's door. I came up with an idea selling candies. So I did some math. I realized when you buy a bag of candy, which cost like 50 cents, you would make like 20 cents as profit. So I started buying candies, and then, but I was like, I didn't have capital. So I went to borrow money to friends and neighbors. But I faced a lot of rejections and some people slamming doors on me saying, go get lost. You just only need the money to buy food. So all those every day, I would go home crying. It was becoming clear that I don't have a place in this world. But one thing kept me moving from one door to another one, despite the rejections. There's a time my dad, it's a thought that was in my head before I lost my dad. There's a time I had a conversation with him. I was a kid, just, walking around, whenever he comes home, he would put me on his shoulder and we walk around. And then one day he asked me, so Dad is happy? I was like, yeah, Dad is happy because he's hanging out with his boy. And he put me down and he kneeled to be on my level and he said, yeah, Dad is happy. That time I was 6 years old when he was telling me that, but for some reason that conversation replayed in my head. So he said, I want to tell you something that you will always remember. So yes, Dad is happy, but being happy, it doesn't mean that everything is perfect. It means that you decide to look beyond the imperfection and you turn challenges into opportunities. So it didn't make sense that time. I was a kid.
Right.
Until that moment when I faced those rejections, when I was trying to fight for what I can do to create a future. And then, as I was knocking on doors, facing those rejections and insults, one day, I knocked to this woman's door and she let me in. She asked me what I want, and I told her the idea that I need to borrow money to start the business so I can sell candies, I can make money, pay for school. She was like, I can pay for your school fees, don't worry about it. And I was like, no, I want to do it myself. I don't want to be a burden to anybody. And I was serious, actually. When she insisted, I started walking away, even if it was the only opportunity I got. And she saw that I was serious. She gave me the money. I went, start business, and I would go to school, bare feet, walking miles and miles, hungry, with a bag of candies, selling them. And before I reached school, it was not allowed. So I would hide them in the bushes, go to school. And that time I was studying by memorization because, of course, I couldn't be able to buy a notebook or anything because no money. So, but when I'm in school, I'm also thinking about where that bag of candy is. I'm like, if it's stolen, my future is gone. So during the break, I would go and look at it and change the hiding spot. And then, so I managed to get the money back to sell, like make some money. I went to pay the woman back. She was like, no, it's okay. Now you can keep this money. Seems like it's working well for you. I was like, I felt like a billionaire. Like when I say billionaire, I'm talking in the dollars, not just 50 cents. It felt like I'm a billionaire because it was becoming clear that now I have a future. I can go to school, no problem. I can pay for school because I get the hang of learning by memorization. And then things started getting better and we start getting back to our feet. So then in the school, I went, after that was elementary school, and then I went to high school. I did well. In the college, I studied agriculture, and I came across, learned about quinoa through the work I was doing in Rwanda. In 2012, when I was still in college, and I was like, this crop is amazing. Maybe I can go learn about it and share it with the world because of its potential. Yeah. So that's how it happened, but it's a long journey, but it was,
It's a long journey. But again, the word is inspirational that comes to mind for me. The other thing is the strength of your parents and the message and the conviction that they left with you. And the fact that this one woman, other than your parents, changed the course of your life, it just, I think it shows or demonstrates to all of us what we talk about a single act of kindness, but I'm not sure that if we truly realize how powerful it can be.
Yeah, that's true.
So one of the things that it's almost ironic is you were selling candy, which may not be the most nutritious form of food in the world. And you have become, somebody around, again, a world-renowned crop scientist and agricultural entrepreneur. And one thing I'd like to pick up on, and I think you were talking about it, I believe, in Can Africa Feed the World, you were talking about how much uncultivated land there is in Africa and how much of that land is arable. And what is the pathway to translating that arable land to, I mean, you were talking about feeding billions as a potential.
Yeah. So I think maybe I'd even start by maybe answering your question on, I think where you said, candies, not the most nutritious. That's what was the lucrative, affordable investment I would have. And the kids,
I'm not criticizing. I just thought
everybody loves candy. Anyway, but it worked well from a candy to quinoa. So let's call it that way.
Perfect.
So yeah, Africa, I think it's a hub of opportunity, and also it's the future, if I can call it that way, because of I would say three main reasons. Africa is the world's youngest continent, with around 60% of the population that are currently under the age of 25. So that itself is, this represents a huge opportunity for the continent to position itself in the global production and the consumption chain. And youth is one of the biggest, I would say, resources Africa has, because their eagerness, dynamism, let's call it that way, or creativity, energy, and the ability to make the best use of innovation, for example, and they can drive the political, economic, and the cultural transformation of the continent. So that's one of the number one. And the other one, imagine having around 60% of the world's farmable land being in Africa. So this is, if there is it is estimated that, for example, if all the arable land in Africa were to be nurtured with the right information, knowledge, and the farmers to, to be the technology transfer to farmers with the credible research institutions and the technical expertise to be shared to them, Africa will be able to feed over 60% of the world's population by 2050 alone. So that's an opportunity based on research and report from credible institutions like the World Bank, the UN, and all those institutions. But it's even clear, if the land is there and the right technology, why not? That is possible. And one other important factor is that Africa is endowed with the natural resources, including large pools of water. So how in the USA or Canada, we have a season of dormancy like winter and stuff like. In Africa, you can, with the right technology, you can cultivate all year round. In many countries in Africa, especially the sub-Saharan Africa. So, but what is sad is that Africa's potential as a growth for market and business opportunity remain underestimated and misunderstood. And the potential for business to play a role in solving the continent's biggest challenges. So even we know Africa has been one of the world's fastest growing region over the past decades. And by 2030, according to the World Bank, it will be home with nearly 1.7 billion of people. and an estimated 6.7 trillion worth of consumer and business spending. So imagine that. But then how can we get there? To get there, I think we need to look into let's say, I think one of the things to see agriculture as the pillar of Africa's development and poverty reduction. Because I think the all stakeholders, government, donors, and the private sector must align their targets and the investment toward the shared goal of a sustainable and equitable inclusive growth. So there is a lot of investment opportunity in different areas, different sectors. But even though it's essential to invest in all those sectors, but there is an untapped margin, if I can call it, of potential economic impact to be had from applying existing funds. For example, if they applied in a more targeted and coordinated way, like major opportunities for increasing growth through a smart and coordinated approach can be found in the agriculture sector, because it's the one that played a bigger GDP and that also served a lot of people. So I would say, to answer your question, deploying funds and investment in a more coordinated approach that is equitable and sustainable by focusing on the agricultural sector.
And that, to me, it seems to be your life's work at this point. I mean, my understanding, you're in Washington. You're associated with some incredible institutions, whether they be learning or, if my understanding is right, a subcommittee of the United Nations.
Yeah.
Is this an area that you believe is being focused on properly in the world yet?
I think it has been undermined or overlooked in the past, but I think recently there is a big push. Like, for example, last week there was the UN General Assembly. We launched what is called the UN Food Systems Summit, as I would say, which aim to transform our food system more on focusing, on 3 dimensions. I mean, like food security and nutrition, as well as sustainability, focusing on also climate change. So, and in fact, now people are becoming aware of that, but it has to be, they're still, they still need more advocacy,
right,
because funds and investment are only directed towards, this trending, innovation in other sectors. But we forget that agriculture and food is actually the basic, it's a foundational, or it's a pillar of any development. Because tell me how, if you want to develop a country, let's say you are given a country and your people are hungry, malnourished, are starving. If you do infrastructure development, who is going to use those infrastructure if people are hungry and starving and malnourished? Because
right,
again, malnutrition affects the physical development, and also like the cognitive development of people, if it's cognitive impairment. So imagine a country like Africa, even if I'm saying it's a land of opportunity with around 1 billion of people under the age of 25. If all those kids have gone under nutrition, they have experienced starvation and malnutrition or stunting, I think we will end up having an unproductive society, because you need the people who are healthy, first of all, to withstand future disaster, but also to work productively in all the other socioeconomic development aspect or different project.
And when you're looking at that and the different projects, you seem to be focused very much on quinoa and as the crop of choice.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about quinoa that can help with this malnutrition or malnourishment?
So, well, maybe if I talk about quinoa, quinoa is one among many other crops. In fact, quinoa, I would say, even though I've been known for quinoa, but there are other crops I'm also working with. But the idea is about these crops that have been neglected, but they are, let's call them super grains or superfood, very nutritious and have high adaptability, and they can cope well with the climate change. And quinoa is one of them. And in fact, quinoa, if I now go to the quinoa particularly, quinoa has high adaptability in different climates and soils and easy to grow. In fact, it provides short and long-term food security, let's call it that way. For example, in Rwanda, when we introduced quinoa back in 2015, the biggest challenge we had was like, are people going to accept it? Are they going to embrace it? But we were so surprised how they embraced it, because they know, now we have seen like remarkable stories, people saying, if I have quinoa in the field, my family and I cannot not go to bed hungry, because we can go in the field and snap the leaves, make a soup, eat, you can eat it at every developmental developmental stage.
Right.
Then when it's ready, they can harvest the grains and consume the grains. And what is important is that quinoa so far is the only crop that is known as a complete protein crop, because it has all the essential amino acids the human body needs. So, and then imagine eating the nutritious grains and the nutritious leaves from the same crop. And again, it's also like in Rwanda, they're also using it, the leftovers after harvesting, to feed their cows and goats, like,
Right.
their animals. So it's a multi-purpose. So, but that, like I like to say, quinoa is the only magic crop. There is several crops that play roles in eradicating hunger and malnutrition. But we need to have, those crops needs to be focused on deploying research funds to do research on those crops. Like even for quinoa, we still struggle to raise funds, because funds are given to the major commodities. So
Okay.
it's sad.
Well, it sounds very challenging, and as you said before, as you pointed out, I think our number one commodity is ourselves and our ability to think and to grow,
Mhm.
and that comes from, and that starts with nutrition. And I'm very fortunate to be speaking to you today. I'm here and Say Hi to the Future with Cedric Habiyaremye, a world-renowned crop scientist and agricultural entrepreneur, and you've been I think I've learned more in the last half hour than maybe in the last 3 to 4 to 6 months, to be honest. And it's your journey is incredible. The inspiration that I think you provide to people is as incredible as what you're doing today to help feed or to develop a food security and a food system within a developing continent. So one of the things that I know that's come out of your journey and your work is the talk about the power of adversity, how you spread that and how you help us understand how we can, for us, to be quite honest, in North America, I don't know that we go through 1% of what you've had to overcome. But tell us a little bit about your talk then and the power of adversity.
So the power of adversity. I know, like everybody in this world, no matter who you are, wherever you are, whatever you do, nobody has it all. We all have things we bought in our lives. Some may think, oh, they're bottling bigger, they're facing a lot of adversity compared to the other ones, but we all get also, we cope differently. Some well, some not so well. But I think what I've learned is that in my my life journey with all the struggle and stuff like that, I think I would say that adversity have taught me three main lessons of life. What I've learned, it taught me humility, perseverance, and the essence of contentment. And those are actually the most important things in our lives. For example, when, sometimes you can go to work and you have a bad day, and you come home and you focus on that fact that you had a bad day, and they broke your inner heart feelings to appreciate contentment or other things that went well in your life, because your day had how many hours, but one thing's happened and it's going to trash every other good things that happened in that day. So I came to see that when one door of happiness closes, another opens. And often we look so long, all the closed doors that's broke us from seeing the open doors. I think one of the thing that I always aspire or work towards, to nurture every day, is being nice to everyone, or developing a good relationship with anybody I meet in my life, whether people in general, my family and friends, because I realized the biggest asset in life is people. But again, you can't maintain those assets if you are not caring about your sanity as a person, as an individual, But again, if you don't take your me time, let's call it that way, and you're just maybe focusing on negativities, or you are chasing whatever. Now today's is the social media is the biggest
Right.
the biggest distraction, where you are always comparing your life to someone else's life. I want to tell people that comparison is the thief of joy. Basically, I think I've learned to be happy with what I have, who I am, and where I am in this life, in my life. And those keep me be able to overcome all these obstacles of, hardships of this one. Because life is not a straight line. We all zig and zag, and yeah.
Well, Cedric, again, I just want to thank you so much for your time today, and the description of your journey from the 6-year-old discussion with your father about contentment, about happiness, the 11-year-old discussion with your mother and your brother by the tree about not giving up and staying focused. And there's just so much that we can take away from what you've said today. And I'll end again on that one woman who believed in you and helped get the ball rolling on a journey of education that's brought you to the highest levels of thought leadership in your world. And again, thank you and congratulations for absolutely everything you've done.
Thank you very much, Ken. And I really thank you for giving me the opportunity and for giving me your time as well.
Have a good evening, and I hope that one day in Washington we'll have the chance to meet.
Definitely.
Take care. Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.